Broadcasting to the Wizarding World since 2008.
HPA&A's official Harry Potter podcast.
Official Harry Potter podcast.
This is Hogwarts Radio. This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 213 for September 16th, 2018. Hogwarts Radio is HPA&A.com's podcast discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the Wizarding World. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out HPA&A.com. Hello everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter fans worldwide since 2008. I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
I'm Luke Hogan.
And I'm Gretchen Rush.
Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and other places where podcasts are aggregated.
It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button, and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday. HogwartsRadio.com is in the middle of a complete redesign. In the meantime, we invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including exclusive merchandise, host vlogs, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Visit patreon.com/HogwartsRadio to sign up today. Well, guys, I think summer is officially over. I mean,
really?
Not for
it was
another
80 degrees here today.
Well, I mean, weather-wise,
That would be nice and cool for here. The solstice isn't until, next week.
Yeah, I know. But still,
Isn't it
I mean...
the 22nd? 22nd.
Okay, well, summer's almost over. How's that?
That works. I'll accept that. Fine. I fully agree with what you're saying. I walked outside this morning, and it was 57 degrees out, which it's been, at least 80 every morning when I've left to go to work, so it's been really nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't referring to the weather because it's still 1,000 degrees down here in Texas. I just don't know where the time went. So to kind of give you a little insight, so today we're going to be talking about Remus Lupin in our final part of our Marauders discussion, part 2 of Remus Lupin. But to kind of give you an insight on how long we've been talking about the Marauders, July 20th, episode 204, we began this series discussion with Peter Pettigrew. So that was 2 months ago.
2 months, wow.
Yeah, 2 months to discuss the Marauders. But I mean, to be fair, we had a trailer in between then. We had our anniversary show in between then. So, just a couple of side discussions. But pretty much, I mean, episode 204, like I said, Peter Pettigrew. Episode 208, which was released August 12th, James Potter. Episode 209, which was released August 19th, was part 1 of Sirius Black, and we pretty much stayed with him for almost a month for the next 2 weeks. Episode 210, 211, and then 212, we started Remus Lupin, and 213, we're wrapping up Remus Lupin and our Marauders discussion. Fun stuff.
Yeah, it's been really fun digging into the Marauders in depth. You don't really get too many opportunities to find excuses to really go this in depth, about them. So I'm glad we've done this. It's been a pretty good series, I think.
And next week we're going to be discussing or starting our discussion series on Dumbledore's Army and the characters within there. So I think we have Neville Longbottom on tap for next week's episode, which is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. I love Neville. But before all that, let's go ahead and get to this week's show. And Luke has a rock update for us. So Luke, who did you listen to this week?
So from one of our beautiful patrons, Sydney Mook, one of our team members as well, we got the suggestion to go with anything by Tonks and the Aurors. So I looked on Spotify and saw that they had 3 albums on there, and I put the vote up on our Patreon Slack channel, and the pretty clear winner was the recently released 2018 Huffle Riot, mostly because I think no one in the chat had listened to it yet. So, sound like a good enough reason for me to check them out, and I'll just, the style on this was, I'll call it sock hop pop politics punk. So I'm also going to preface this with, I avidly do not politic. As Bailey said, I am probably the most anti-politic person she knows. So this album was more than a bit rough for me to get all the way through. And this isn't meant to be, a political stance against any single thing that was said or stances that were taken on the album. But, to me, songs that are very, very thinly veiled, surface-level political themes with a Harry Potter twist, they just don't tend to make it very high on my personal playlists. I do love Rage Against the Machine, but I think a lot of that is the music carrying it. This isn't a musical genre that it didn't give me any goosebumps, I'll say that. Yeah, definitely check it out for yourselves, though. I mean, there's, like I said, I'm not against anything that they said. I just actively do not politic myself. Did anyone else have a chance to listen to it today?
Yeah, I played it, and the first song I played, I guess I must have been on shuffle because it played He's a Gryffindor. And I listened to maybe a minute of it, and all I heard was, He's a Gryffindor, or whatever the tune was. And I was like, this song's really repetitive. So I did not continue listening to the album.
I will say the repetitive lyric chanting style is pretty prevalent throughout the album. So that's not just a that song kind of thing. It's pretty ingrained in the entire album.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I think it goes across most of the songs on the album.
Yeah.
It's not really my jam, so...
Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate what they're doing with it. They're, using a platform for things that they believe in, and I'm all for, hey, take a stand if that's what you want to do, fight for it. I'm all for that. It's just not done in a way that I would do myself.
I love the name of the album.
Oh, yeah.
Huffle Riot. That's a great name. That's a great name.
It was not at all what I expected going into it. And I think, because even Sydney, who hadn't heard it yet, she helped us select that album. And as she started listening to it, she was like, I don't know how I feel about this, which was kind of funny.
Well, go ahead and be sure to send in your Wizard Rock recommendations to @LucaFerocious and @Hogwarts Radio on Twitter, and possibly stay away from the politically themed recommendations for Luke's sanity. Using the hashtag RockList, that's hashtag WROCK list, for suggestions on which Wizard Rock album or artist Luke should listen to next week. And check out Hogwarts Radio Rock Spotify playlist each week to listen along and send us your thoughts.
All right. Thank you so much, Luke. And Gretchen, what is on tap for the news this week?
Well, first up, they have just announced a new audiobook. It is called Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, Makers, Mysteries, and Magic. And it will be narrated by Dan Fogler, who plays Jacob Kowalski. Basically, it takes listeners on an audio adventure around the back lot of Leavesden Studios into rehearsals and workshops for the new movie. So cast members will be on it discussing their characters, and it will also feature interviews with members of the filmmaking team, like director David Yates. I'm assuming J.K. Rowling is not on it since her name was not mentioned, but you never know. And Dan Fogler said about the book, "This whole experience has been an adventure for me, and I'm really excited for fans to come along for the ride. We made an exclusive all-access audiobook that takes you to places that no microphone has been before. If you've ever wanted to know what it takes to make not just an epic movie, but one set in the wizarding world, this is a must listen. It covers everything from props, costumes, and acting to wands and nifflers. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we've enjoyed making it." And the book is going to be released on November 16th. So this is
I got the email for this and I was so excited.
Yeah, this sounds really cool. It doesn't really sound like a book to me, though. I'm very curious if it will be actually released in book format or if it's just going to be available in this audio format.
The snippet that says places no microphone has been before makes me think that it's not going to be a physical book.
Right. Which is kind of a uncharted territory here. It's a very cool idea to have kind of this behind the scenes audio tour of a movie. I think it could be a really cool, almost like groundbreaking thing for them to do.
I'm kind of wondering what this is. Is it going to be kind of like an audio drama? Like, those are starting to pop up even more now.
I feel like there's so much to this that could be visually driven, though, that it would be really smart to at least have an ebook companion where you can see what they're talking about and you can kind of get for what that they're going over, especially because it's talking about behind the scenes and the studio and building it. And I think that would be a missed opportunity if they don't do that.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense to have like a companion book like, here is this set that Dan's talking about in this moment of the audiobook.
Yeah, there has to be something visually accompanying this. I mean, there's only so far you can go with audio, right? I mean, it's not like you can, drag the person in literally to the book. I mean, I don't know how it's going to be done. It says where no microphone has been before. I mean, I'm interested because I'm an audiophile. I love anything that has to do with audio. And I'm kind of curious how they're going to be doing this.
I suppose some audiobooks, at least when you rent them through the library, they do come with like a companion of images to look at that you can download through the website. So that's possibly something that might be released with it. You'll get like a file of images.
That would be cool.
That's true. Yeah, that'd be neat.
So I know there's some other new, I know this isn't directly apples to apples comparison, but there's a podcast player out there called Acast, and with that, I know podcasters can actually include images and videos that play along inside the audio file. Like it's embedded into it. It's all one continuous, streamlined piece of media, and it makes me wonder if maybe they do something like that, where it's all. I mean, really, you're getting a long form video where it's more narrative audio based. Because other than that, yeah, it sounds like, hey, let's take a microphone into the Louvre in Paris and I'm going to describe these things to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out on November 16th.
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, it's so much curiosity built around this. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Another thing that I really wanted to say about this is that the actors in the Fantastic Beasts series, have you guys noticed that they're so much more immersive into their, like, being involved in the community, in the fan experience? Like, I mean, what did we have? Like, we had Jude Law recently, and Eddie Redmayne go out to Platform 9 3/4. We have Dan Fogler doing this whole experience. Eddie Redmayne has done a lot of things outside of his role as Newt Scamander, or as the character. So yeah, I think that'd be that. I mean, it's very interesting that the actors are just so heavily involved in what's going on in the fan community.
I'm wondering if this is something that the actors themselves are like, hey, this would be a great idea, or if it's the publicity team for the movie suggesting it and the actors are just very amenable to it.
Yeah, I feel like it could go either way. I could see it as being even a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could too.
So guys, this is kind of big news, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Universal Orlando has announced that they will not be doing a celebration of Harry Potter 2019.
What the heck is this?
This makes me so sad.
Yeah.
I know.
Literally.
So they said the reason was because they're working on exciting new experiences for guests to continue to celebrate next year, including the thrill ride that's coming that we're going to talk about on the next episode. And because they're kind of focusing on this and making the park better, it means that they will not be hosting a celebration of Harry Potter in 2019.
So it kind of makes me wonder, are they trying not to stretch themselves too thin because they have a lot of things going on right now? Is this going to return in 2020? Or are they finally going to get into the knack of doing something on September 1st and centering that whole celebration, rebranding that, and doing it around the trip to Hogwarts?
That would definitely be really cool. One of the things that stands out to me in this statement, though, is it says, we and other Universal theme parks will always be looking for opportunities to host special Wizarding World experiences. So when am I going to get my Universal Hollywood experience?
Good point.
I mean, I kind of see Orlando. I mean, Orlando was the first park, right? So it's kind of the test park. It's not necessarily...
Well, and I fully see that as like the park. It's the biggest one. It has the most different things.
Right.
But I feel like they could do something at each park every year.
Yeah, maybe they just start touring around with it more, right? Instead of just being at one, try to get people to...
I mean, they did just bring Christmas decorations to the parks for the first time this last year.
Wow.
So I think they're finally starting to kind of up their game.
Well, it took them 8 years to do that.
Yeah, if you count the launch of Orlando, yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is anybody really upset that they're not having the celebration anymore? Or are we more anxious to see what they're going to be putting in its place?
I mean, really
I've never
upset
been,
would be a
so
stretch.
I can't say.
I didn't even know it existed, honestly, until like the last couple months. I had no idea this even happened.
So every year this always happens right around my birthday, and I've always joked like, oh, next year I'm gonna go for my birthday. So the fact that I can't go for my birthday this year, I'm like, oh man, this year would have been the year probably.
Now you have to pick something else to not go to.
I think the reason why they initially started this celebration of Harry Potter was because they took a look and saw how successful the other fan conventions have been, and they said, hey, we can do it, and we can do it better because we're the official channel. We don't really have any strings, so we can get whoever we want to get to come in and talk at these and provide like different experiences from the studios and the people that actually worked on the film and all that stuff. I'm just really surprised that they're not going to be continuing it, and I am more curious about what they're going to be putting in its place, if anything at all. I mean, it sounds like 2019 is going to be a quiet year for the fans while they do a lot of the behind the scenes work to the park itself.
It also makes me think if this is kind of part of the, overall adjustment period that the organization at large is going through to become more truly branded as Wizarding World experience instead of celebration of Harry Potter. So let's take a year off of just doing this, totally revamp it to be more inclusive of Newt Scamander, Fantastic Beast elements, and anything else they may have in the works, I guess.
We'll find out. Well, even if you can't go to that in 2019, you may be able to go to something else. So on September 27th, they are going to be releasing over 100,000 new Cursed Child tickets. So these tickets will be starting at $40 and they'll be available across all price points for performances through June 9th, 2019. And you are not going to need an access code to get to tickets. On September 27th, you just go on the website, brand new block of tickets are open, and hopefully you'll be able to grab some for Cursed Child on Broadway.
It is a huge amount of tickets.
That's
enormous.
That is a lot of tickets, yeah. Yeah, because wasn't the initial just really a couple thousand, if even that? 100,000. That's a pretty big number. Yeah, I mean, I experienced some of that frustration whenever they initially released the tickets. You had to have that access code and stuff, but you still couldn't get the tickets.
Yeah, still couldn't get them.
It was rough. It was real rough. The struggle is real.
I seriously considered planning a trip to New York if I was able to get tickets, and there was nothing available in a reasonable price point. So, oh well. It's coming to San Francisco. I'll see it eventually.
That's much closer for you.
I have friends who live in like the New Jersey area who have seen this 2 and 3 times. It's like, how do you get these tickets to go see it more than once?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's very frustrating.
I don't think they care, Luke. That's my opinion. They're selling tickets. They won all the Tonys. They are making a return on their investment for sure. So they just keep releasing the tickets every so often, gets it back in the news cycle, gets more people buying tickets, and they're happy. I'm just going to keep trying for the Friday 40 every Friday. One day. The odds have to eventually work out to be in my favor.
They will ever be in your favor.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Or will they?
Or
I don't
will
know.
they? That worked out so well.
I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you.
We'll ask Effie.
Yes, thank you. Call her up. Don't know a way to transition to this next news article. Fun things are coming to our television this fall. Ivana Lynch, our beloved Luna Lovegood and host of Chick Peeps with Tyler Starr, our friend, is going to be on Dancing with the Stars. So she'll be joined by her partner, Kyo Motsepi, who's already started coaching her through dance moves, and they will be easy to follow on Instagram with their hashtag Kevana, Kevanna. So if you love Dancing with the Stars, or if you think that could be a lot of fun, check that out. Ivana Lynch has like a history of dancing and Irish dance, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see her in this different capacity. I'm definitely going to watch for the first time ever.
Yeah, we've already seen those promo photos. If you have looked at Ivana's Instagram lately, you'll see, I mean, that's all she's going to be posting, she said, for quite a while, is just Dancing with the Stars things. But there's a promo photo of her in one of the outfits, and her and her partner really look great. I'm kind of hoping that she goes far.
They look great.
I think she definitely has the potential to.
Luke's like, I've never seen the show. No opinions.
All I can say about it is the pun "Dancing with the Tyler Stars." That's all I got.
Nice. I love
So
it.
good.
I'll mute myself again. Thanks.
Tweet that.
This is great.
Well-
I'm not a big fan of the show. I've watched it a couple of times, just a few small performances and some of the final performances. But I mean, myself, it's really not my cup of tea. But I am happy to support anything that Ivana does, and I am really looking forward to seeing her bulldoze her way through this competition.
That's it for the news this week, folks.
That's all, folks. What the hell was that? Away. Never mind. Just one announcement for you guys this week. Our new social media manager, Sydney. Congrats, Sydney, by the way, on making it to our social media manager position. Whoop whoop.
Yay!
Woohoo! She rocks.
She does.
Go, Sydney!
Sydney is amazing. But anyway, our new social media manager, Sydney, has asked me to remind you that the third floor corridor is that they're hiring interns for our social media team. So if you've got a knack or a passion for Twitter, Facebook, Insta, is what all the cool kids are calling it now, Tumblr, and that's right, we're bringing Tumblr back. Then fill out our handy dandy form that we have linked to our show notes. Or if you see us post about it, we usually post about it on Twitter, and I think we're going to start on Facebook. And that way we can start talking to you and onboarding you, getting you on the team here. It's really a lot of fun to run our accounts and interact with other Potter fans. That's one of the things we've been doing for a long time is really our Twitter account is our number one place that people like to follow us online. I think we're almost at that 50,000 mark. I think we need about 200 more followers and we'll be there, but we're all over the place. Like I said, Facebook, Sydney's been doing a wonderful job with posts over there about the books and the movies and favorite characters, and really a lot of fun, just all over the place. So we want you to become part of the team and help us run those accounts. Okay, let's move into our discussion this week. Like I said at the top of the show, we will be discussing Remus Lupin. This is part 2 of Remus Lupin. If you haven't heard our part 1 discussion, we encourage you to download episode 212. Take a listen to that. And we're actually going to pick up where we left off at the Second Wizarding War.
So the Second Wizarding War took place between 1995 and 1998, and when Lord Voldemort returned, Remus rejoined the Order of the Phoenix, of the advance guard that escorted Harry Potter from Number 4 Privet Drive to 12 Grimmauld Place. Lupin lived for some time at Sirius's house, but he was not around very often as he was usually sent on many missions for the Order. The Battle of the Department of Mysteries occurred in 1996, which Remus also participated in, and he defeated a number of Death Eaters, including their leader, Lucius Malfoy. He was one of only 3 combatants to see the end of the battle unscathed, the others being Albus Dumbledore and Harry Potter, proving Remus's exceptional skill at dueling. During this battle, Remus witnessed and was devastated by the death of his last surviving Marauder friend, Sirius, who was pushed through the veil in the Death Chamber by a curse cast by Bellatrix Lestrange.
So let's talk for a moment about the PTSD that he might be experiencing at this point. He rejoined the Order, and the last time he was in the Order, 2 of his friends died, right? He was away on a mission for the Order of the Phoenix whenever Lily and James were killed. Can you imagine the kind of stress that he's enduring right now, in addition to everything else that he has going on with his werewolfness and all that good stuff? But can you imagine the kind of stress and that he's going through, like leaving and not knowing if any more of his friends are going to be killed or, something like that whenever he comes back? It's got to be unnerving.
I think it really puts into perspective how Lupin acts during book 7. Just the whole leaving Tonks and wanting to be on the cutting edge of everything again and out there where all the action is happening.
I think it brings a lot of perspective to that, absolutely. But also how he is at the beginning of book 6, where he's ignoring Tonks, her advances or whatever, and doesn't really want to get in a relationship. Yeah, we always hear it's the werewolf thing, but I mean, honestly, he's going through some stuff, right? Like and I know she is too. So I'm not like, blaming her, but I can kind of see where he's coming from. It's like, I kind of just need to figure out what the hell is going on with like everything at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't want to get attached to anybody. He doesn't want to have someone that's going to have that big of an effect on him if they die.
Exactly.
I fully get it.
That. Yeah. And to also bring into this conversation, at the first Wizarding War, I mean, in his head at the time, and for 12 years after, he thought that Peter Pettigrew was killed too, his other friend. So it wasn't just Lily and James, it was also Peter. It was also Sirius totally betraying them that he had to deal with. And yeah, I mean, I can definitely see why book 6 and 7 Lupin is pretty complicated, and why he definitely doesn't want to get attached very quickly, on top of the werewolf thing.
Yeah, on top of the whole being a werewolf. It's something you can't stick a pin in either. He's like, well, I'll come back to that.
Remus barely managed to prevent Harry from diving in after Sirius, who was already lost. Later that year, Remus began working as a spy for the Order, living among fellow werewolves and trying to convince them to join Dumbledore's side. It is said that he volunteered just to keep away from Tonks, as they were both very much in love with each other by this point, and he would not risk his child having lycanthropy. Alas, it was difficult to convince them due to the fact that many were frightened and intimidated by Fenrir Greyback, and that Remus showed signs of living among the humans.
So a couple of things to unpack in this passage. He worked as a spy for the Order, living among fellow werewolves. I was unaware that, and he said trying to convince them to join Dumbledore's side. I was unaware that werewolves could communicate with each other. I thought they were just wild beasts that, you couldn't reason with.
Well, that's only for 3 days in a month?
Yeah, not when they're not
normal
werewolves.
They're normal people the rest of the month, but they're outcasts.
Yeah, just look at Lupin.
Oh. Well, see, I kind of had this vision in my head that they were all sitting around like Narnia animals, how they
Right.
talk, sitting around a stump or something, and Lupin's making this grand speech in werewolf form.
Which is something I've always consistently had a problem with in the early books before we meet Lupin, so books 1 and 2. The talk of werewolves in the Forbidden Forest on the grounds of Hogwarts is one of the most ridiculous things that have ever been in the books. Like, for 28 days, there's just a group of 30 adults hanging out there. Like, they're like, whatever. They're probably just playing cards or chess.
They're creepy, though, so don't go talk to them.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Malfoy. Don't go talk to those grown adults out there.
They'll get you.
And it's always Draco that's worried about the werewolves in the forest.
Another takeaway from this small passage was that he wouldn't risk his child having lycanthropy. Was he, okay, two things with this. Was he afraid that he would attack his own child and have it turn into a werewolf? Or is it whenever a child is conceived and one of the parents are affected, that it kind of passes it on through the genes? Because if so, I'm kind of thinking that there should be more werewolves in the wizarding world.
I think he was afraid of the latter happening.
Yeah, but is that even possible? I mean, is this a condition that gets passed down hereditarily?
That doesn't make any sense to me, why that would be the case.
Well, the better question would be, how many partial werewolf children are there out there to even study to know if that's something that affects them?
Then why would he not risk his child having lycanthropy?
That's what I'm saying, is maybe there are no werewolves who have had children, and so he doesn't know if that's something that's going to affect his child, and he doesn't want to risk having a child and it at least partially being affected.
That's what I think he alludes to in book 7 when he goes to Harry, right? And then that's when Harry kind of freaks out on him. He's like, "What? Get out of here!"
Yeah, why have you left Tonks?
Right, and he's like, "I never should have gotten her pregnant," and like all these things. And I think he kind of alludes to he's worried that it's gonna have the taint, or however he words it. And I don't know if lycanthropy is just somewhat new in the wizarding world, or what that history is like, but there doesn't seem to be all that many offspring to, I think, as Gretchen said, study.
Do we know if Teddy was in fact infected at all in any other writings from
I don't
J.K.
think
Rowling?
he was. I don't
think so.
think he
Probably
was.
not, because that is insane. I mean, does it change? Like, okay, I guess it's not insane. It could change his DNA
Yeah,
when
I
you
would think
become
it
a werewolf.
potentially
Yeah,
does.
that would make sense. But then, I don't know. I'm going to look it up.
Well, and then you have like Bill, who gets partially attacked and then has a fondness for raw
Bloody
steak,
meat.
basically.
Yeah.
And he was attacked when Greyback wasn't transformed, right? Like, that was why that was weird, was because he got
I think so.
bitten or savaged in some way, which I think that makes even less sense.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Greyback bit him as a human.
Greyback's always like half transformed, right? He's like
No,
half.
he just has the antics full time.
Yeah, and the strange
He's full of antics.
appearance, movie-wise at least.
Maybe Teddy
Yeah.
just like turns into Cousin It once a month or something, you know?
Okay. Now I found the answer. It says he did not inherit his father's lycanthropy.
Okay. So
He was a metamorph magus.
So he inherited that.
Yes, he inherited that. He did not inherit the wolfiness.
I wonder if they're offsetting genes. You know, it's the same chromosome.
Yeah. Hers
One
was
cancels
stronger.
out the other.
Yeah. Magical biology, folks. Gets genetics.
Today's episode.
The following year, Remus fought bravely again at the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, where he narrowly avoided death by a curse from Thorfinn Roll. Remus was devastated upon hearing about the death of Albus Dumbledore, who had been killed by Snape. However, the aftermath of the battle led him to accept the love of Nymphadora Tonks, who pointed out that Fleur Delacour still loved Bill Weasley in spite of being attacked and scarred by Greyback. The pair attended their former headmaster's funeral together and soon married in the north of Scotland with only witnesses from the local tavern. They were forced to do so quietly, given the general prejudice against werewolves.
I still don't know why like they didn't invite some of the Order members.
Right, like at least they're friends.
Yeah, that are already accepting of his condition, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a pretty good point. Like, why don't they invite anybody? Like, they have to have a witness, right, from both sides. Like,
Well, they had the strangers in the tavern, so.
Who were on their way to Winterfell at the time. Yeah.
yeah. At the crossroads.
Who are their friends, though? Like, do they have friends?
Bill and Molly would have gone up there. They'd be like, we'll make a vacation of it. We went to Egypt before. We'll go to the north of Scotland now. You know, we've got a tough
I
year
think
ahead
part of it
us.
is they don't want to burden anybody with doing this thing for them. They just want to do it quietly and on their own terms.
And everyone, I think everyone that they would invite is already pretty busy doing order tasks, right? I mean, they're on like strict schedules and things like that, with all sorts of things. I mean, I think there was a lot more in book 5, which was before this, with the protecting the secret weapon, as they say. But yeah, maybe they just didn't want to. They don't like to be bothers. You know, don't worry about us. We'll do this ourselves. We'll do our own flowers.
In July of 1997, Remus participated in the Order's operation to remove Harry from his home before Voldemort could get to him. Remus acted as the protector of George Weasley, who took Polyjuice Potion to become one of the 7 Potters. The party was ambushed by at least 30 cloaked Death Eaters. George was accidentally struck by Snape, who was trying to aim for a Death Eater, and accidentally struck George instead with his Sectum Sempra curse, while George and Remus flew. Remus was unable to pay Snape back in time, it being all he could do to keep George on the broom, as the latter was losing a copious amount of blood. He eventually got the injured George back to the burrow to be cleaned up, though George permanently lost an ear. Upon arrival, Remus accosted Harry to prove that Harry was the real Harry. It was later revealed that Snape had sent the spell in an attempt to cut off the hand of a Death Eater aiming at Remus's back, presumably about to kill him. Remus was very anxious about the late arrival of his wife, Tonks, had been aggressively pursued by her murderous, cruel aunt, Bellatrix Lestrange. When the party mourned the death of Alastor Moody, they discussed their betrayal. Harry voiced the opinion that he trusted all of them with his life. Remus urged caution, seeing as Harry's father was killed because he put his trust in the wrong friend. Remus and Tonks both attended the wedding of Bill Weasley and Fleur Delacour shortly afterwards, and bravely defended the Burrow when it came under attack as Voldemort took over the Ministry.
That's interesting that Remus told Harry not to put his trust in the wrong people, because kind of remembering what we talked about last time, Remus wasn't so trusting in the days before James and Lily's death. Like, he believed that Sirius was going to betray them, and he was wrong. So it's kind of interesting to me to think about him saying, oh, don't always trust everybody, but like, you didn't trust the right people and it had serious consequences.
The thing that really stands out to me is Snape, his accidental maiming of George. I mean, that is a really, really complicated, hair-raising scene. There's so much going on, and whatever's asked of you, don't balk. It's kind of like Jon Snow with Corn Halfhand. If they tell you to kill me, kind of thing. I know that's completely out of context for anyone that doesn't know Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, but that's really where Snape's at. It's that double, triple agent that he's playing that side of the card, and even the people that he's really working with, he has to outright attack for everyone's best option moving forward, right? I mean, Snape has to stay in with Voldemort to keep that going, even if his own team, his true team, doesn't know that. It makes me wonder how much he can really control that Sectum Sempra curse, and like, hey, I'm gonna do this so that there's no doubt about me trying to do some real damage. But if I just miss a little, like, at least it's still convincing. I don't know. Look at me trying to give Snape the benefit of the doubt, but
Look at you.
Look at me, I'm growing. It's that's the part that really sticks out to me, though. And like, kind of poor George. And I'm at the end of the day pretty happy that Lupin couldn't fire back, because then Snape probably would have been taken out too early to really play his role.
So there was a part in here, I'm trying to find it. What did it say? It said, okay, so Snape had sent the spell in an attempt to cut off the hand of a Death Eater, aiming at Remus's back. But my question is, did anybody really ever get the Death Eater? I mean, the Death Eater had a clear shot, but Snape missed, so that had nothing to do with the Death Eater.
Right. I was assuming that once he hit George, Remus swerved severely enough to get the Death Eater off track or something, because it was so jarring. I don't know. That's not really clear at all.
I actually missed that line, that Snape was aiming for the Death Eater. Where's that from? I don't think that's from the book.
I know, I don't remember this.
That's not the book.
I don't understand how you can miss with a wand.
It was
like,
later revealed.
I just don't understand that, because to me, magic is so much about intention, and maybe that's because of other things, not specifically Harry Potter, but it just seems so ridiculous that you could intend to cut someone's hand off, but instead cut someone else's ear off.
Well, again, we don't know much.
I think that's kind of the same way you can miss with a gun. You still have to aim.
Right, that's what I don't get, because I don't like that it's similar to a gun.
But we also know that the magic itself, the spell, whenever it's released from the wand, follows through to the person. But I mean, regardless if the person is up, down, left, right, in back of them, it was my understanding that it kind of followed you around like the boomerang until it had either fizzled out or or somebody had blocked it or something like that. But we don't know too much about the Sectum Sempra spell itself, other than it causes the person great harm. So we don't know if it's one of those spells that follows you around or whatnot. Maybe it is hard to control. Maybe it just really depends on the spell itself.
I'm not going to dwell too long on this, but I think it opens some really good questions on wand lore. That's something I'm always kind of looking for. And the way Gretchen is frustrated by how wands are seeming to work. I think it's pretty interesting to think like the different types of wands and how they're different. They have strengths in different kind of magical fields. But like, I wonder, certain wand cores shoot faster, or like a larger magical beam, or like whatever it is, like all those different variances. I wonder how that is dealt with in the wand creation process. I don't think we should get into that now, but that's just what it made me think of.
Well, I really don't think it has anything to do with it, other than the magical ability of the person that wields it. Like we've seen several times in the series where, let's say, Voldemort uses Draco's wand, and yet he's still able to wield that same kind of power, that absolute power that he holds inside of him. We've seen it with, like Harry and the whose other wand did he use? He used Hermione's wand at one point, didn't he? Mm-hmm. In Deathly Hallows, and he was still able to, to wield magic and things like that. So I really don't. I mean, while the wand does choose the wizard, I still think it's because of the wizard's magical ability that they exert.
Well, at least when you go through Pottermore and you read about the different wand cores and wand woods, there are certain combinations that are more suited to specific types of magic. So there's woods that are better for transfiguration. There's things that are better for household spells. So just, I think what Luke's getting at isn't necessarily that they wouldn't be able to do the magic, but that it would be more or less powerful depending on what type of wand you would use.
Yes, and that also comes into play in Diagon Alley the first time we're there, where we meet Ollivander, and he talks about James and Lily's wands and says, oh, it was great for charm work. Oh, good for transfiguration. Like, there are innate, inherent characteristics and strengths of the combinations of woods and cores that some are better for dueling. I mean, that's just true. So, and with that, yeah, a lot of it's going to come directly from the wizard, Witcher wizard, and that's going to Voldemort's going to be able to use any single wand and be as good or better than almost any single person in the world. And the reason he realizes this isn't the Elder Wand is because he's great. The wand isn't making him any better. So that's like his first instance that something's not quite right here, folks.
Remus suffered great mental anguish as the war escalated when he learned that his wife was pregnant. He even tore out a clump of his own hair in anxiety over the possibility that his child would be born a werewolf. He visited Harry, Ron, and Hermione while they hid out in Grimmauld Place and offered to help with their search for Voldemort's Horcruxes. However, Harry denounced him, calling him a coward for even considering leaving his wife alone while pregnant. Remus then left them greatly agitated. Harry and his friends next heard of Remus on Potter Watch under the code name Romulus. Remus made Harry realize that they were still good friends, with his putting forth the opinion that Harry's instincts were good and they were usually right. Remus eventually came to his senses and reunited with Tonks in time to see his son's birth. They named him Edward Remus Teddy Lupin, after Tonks's father, who had recently been murdered by Snatchers after refusing to turn himself in to the Muggleborn Registration Commission. Appearing to forgive and forget their earlier disagreement in Grimmauld Place, Remus asked Harry to be Teddy's godfather.
The only thing that I really have to say about this is that, he was able to put that big disagreement in that fight that they had behind him and Harry. And I think it's wonderful that he asked Harry to be Teddy's godfather.
I think that's almost one of Lupin's major characteristics, is being able to forgive other people for treatment at their hands of him. And I keep harkening back to the time we get really the most in-depth character portrayal of him, I think, is in the Shrieking Shack. And basically, Harry and Ron, they're just finding out that he's a werewolf, and Ron freaks out, right? And Lupin has been through this, and he's been through the inherent hatred or, terror that people feel around him. And I think one of his things that he's always had to get better at is understanding where people's true intentions are coming from and know that they don't necessarily mean him harm, and kind of taking that to heart and making himself better in due course with that information, and not judging somebody else for them not necessarily understanding the full situation like Lupin might, because he's always been intelligent, and it seems like his true character has grown just by nature of being in that negative spotlight his entire life.
I think it's so cool that J.K. Rowling named Remus and Romulus. That was so cool. Taken from Roman mythology. Of course, Romulus and Remus are twin brothers whose story tells the events about the founding of the city of Rome and the Roman kingdom by Romulus.
They were raised by wolves, is the legend.
Yeah.
Wolf.
That's so cool. And I think that's part of the etymology of Remus as well, where she got the inspiration for the name. But fun little fact. I like it whenever J.K. Rowling does those kind of things. We're ready to move
Remus
on.
was one of the many Order members who answered Neville Longbottom's call to arms on 1 May 1998. Harry, Hermione, and Ron returned to Hogwarts, and Lord Voldemort gathered his army to attack the school in order to capture Harry Potter. He organized and led groups to fight Death Eaters on the school grounds, along with Kingsley Shacklebolt and Arthur Weasley. His wife initially agreed not to participate in the Battle of Hogwarts, instead staying with their infant son, but was ultimately unable to bear leaving her husband to face such danger without her. She left Teddy with her mother and raced to Hogwarts, where she was informed that Remus was last seen dueling the Death Eater Antonin Dolohov. Dolohov murdered Remus, who was no longer in prime fighting condition due to months of protective and concealment charms in order to keep his wife and son safe from possible attacks. He was murdered in the main courtyard during the first half of the battle, along with many others, including Tonks, his wife, who was murdered by her aunt Bellatrix Lestrange. Lupin's death was avenged by Phileas Flitwick, who defeated or possibly murdered Dolohov.
That is so sad. And does anybody think it's a little bit selfish that Tonks just kind of dumped Teddy off and said, you know what, I'm going?
Nope.
Yes and no.
I do not. I think it was a little reckless because there was no guarantee that they were going to leave him with a parent, which is what happened. But she's an Auror. She's trained to do this. She's very experienced and equipped to do the job, and she saw a need and she ran to try to meet it. I don't blame her for that.
But doesn't it become a much bigger situation that, you know, having a child like that, you have to protect them. You have to be there for them.
Lupin left the child too.
Oh, I know. Same thing with Lupin. But still, I mean, I'm not going to, I mean, I don't absolutely condone her decision at all. I mean, that was necessary because she probably saved a lot of lives. But at the same time, whenever you have a child, the world just becomes much bigger at that point, and you know, your child is that whole world. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I have to be placed in a similar situation where I have to run off to fight Death Eaters in Hogwarts before I fully understand.
It reminds me of the beginning of Rogue One, when Jyn Erso's young and they come for her father, Galen Erso, and her mom takes her to hide, and she's supposed to stay with her, but then she's like, actually, I'm going to go try to kill him. And so she goes try to kill him, but then she gets killed. It's like a very similar scenario. I feel like you always see parents just be like, just stay here. I need to go try to kill people. And it never works out.
Right. No, you're right.
It's like a weekly occurrence around here. Griffin, just stay in the living room. Daddy has to go kill some people. I'll be back.
Well, okay.
Recording a podcast.
Consistently, I've made it back.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like saying, hey, Griffin, go stay in the living room. I've got a podcast, but yet, you know, other things happen to where either you have to leave or he comes in, or if it was heaven forbid, a dangerous situation there, you know, I don't think that you would say, hey, you know what, go sit in the living room. Let me deal with this real quick, and then I'll be back. You know, I think that you would want to stay around where your child is, you know. But again, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. I'm just, you know, we can say all these sorts of things until we're placed in that kind of situation.
And she did leave Teddy with her mom.
Yeah.
That's the main point that I'm going to get to. It's a lot different than the Ren in, or not Ren, the Rogue One.
Luke is a Star Wars noob.
I wouldn't say noob.
I
know. When she's left, she is just put in a hole,
could be.
and that's like it. That's a little different than saying, hey, I'm putting you with somebody else that I highly, highly trust in a very, very safe, out of the way place where it's unlikely, you know, you're still out of the front lines. Like Gretchen said, Tonks's place is on the front lines. That's part of her job, literally in the job description. And I think it's completely valid that she goes, and Teddy was left in a very safe environment, and that's responsible. I'm with Gretchen and Tonks on this one. She's got to go, and she left Teddy in a safe place. I mean, I'm all for, you know, hey, make sure you get back, but at the same time, if Tonks doesn't go and they find themselves all in a situation where that one more person on the battlefield makes all the difference, which I think those kinds of things definitely happen in stories. You know, it's I think it's the right place for her to be.
So he was killed by Dolohov. It says that due to he wasn't in fighting condition because of months of protective and concealment charms. But can we say the same thing for Harry, Ron, and Hermione at this point? You know, and they were in the battle the whole time.
But they're so much younger.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe because they're younger, it doesn't affect them nearly as much as it affects Remus.
And I wonder, how does it affect you? Like, does it take a lot of energy out of you, or I don't understand. I thought it was just a charm, that you cast. Maybe he didn't save up enough
it
energy.
would make sense that it's like constantly taxing you. It's a continuing spell. It's not just something that you cast and you're done. It's constantly protecting you. So I would think that it's pulling from your energy somehow.
I mean, maybe he didn't have enough energy balls saved up from Hogwarts Mystery or something. I don't know.
He didn't tap that house elf in the dungeons.
Well, I think it's one of those. You have your mana bar in we'll say any RPG game, right? It's a sustain spell, so you're not. It's not like it's continually bringing you down, but yeah, your full total is down to 80% if it's a 20% sustained spell. Gretchen gets it.
I do.
During the brief pause in the battle, Remus and Tonks's bodies were laid out beside each other in the Great Hall. The nature of Remus's death was not revealed, but his body was described as peaceful looking, implying that he was struck with either a killing curse or Dolahov's own curse. Both are known to leave no visible marks on the outer body. However, Remus still had an important part to play in the war. When Harry proceeded to the Death Eater camp to be struck down by Lord Voldemort, he first activated the Resurrection Stone, bringing back the spirits of his parents, Sirius, and Remus. Remus expressed the hope that Harry would care for his son, lamenting that he would never know him, but also found comfort in the fact that his son would know and understand why he died. He was trying to make a world in which his son could live a happier life. Remus Lupin was posthumously awarded the Order of Merlin First Class, the first werewolf ever to have been accorded this honor. The example of his life and death played an important role in lifting the stigma on werewolves among the Wizarding Society.
So this was also comforting. Knowing the last time that we saw Remus was whenever Harry used the Resurrection Stone, right? It brought back like his parents, Sirius and Lupin, but they were all in a state of like nothing was wrong with them. They were the best they had been looking in years. And it's comforting to know that this was the last visual representation that we got of Lupin in the series. And I think that was a great comfort to not only Harry, but people that read the book as well.
So I find this bit about it possibly being Dolahov's own curse that killed Lupin to be really interesting, because I don't ever remember a mention of Dolohov having a curse that he specifically used. I don't have a clue.
In the Department of Mysteries, when they were all running around, he did some odd curses. I remember that standing out, and I think it was... It's been a while since I've read that chapter, and there's so much going on, but it's when they're all running around, and it's like Ron is tangoing with the brain thing, and Neville gets hit by something and breaks his leg. I think it's right in that spot that Dolohov is there, and I don't remember how it's described though, but that would be the only spot I could think of.
I found it says something. Dolahov's signature spell involved using a slashing movement with his wand, which would shoot purple fire at his victims. He used it several times during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Was the only one known to practice the spell, and may have even invented it himself. So that must be what they're referring to.
The slashing move is the thing that stands out. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we could assume that this kind of magic that he was using would leave a mark. So Remus wasn't, he had no marks on him, so we can assume that he was killed by the Avada Kedavra curse at that point. I mean, I think something that shoots purple fire, he's gonna have some singed hair or something. I don't know.
Well, he hits somebody with it. I'm trying to open up my Kindle to do a quick search on it.
It says, well, I mean, yeah, as you just said, both are known to leave no visible marks on the outer body. Okay, so it's unless you cut him open and see if roasted his insides or something.
Nice.
Horrible.
I like Lupin. I think he was a really good character. I just think she really kind of nailed who he was. He's not simple. He's like a complex guy, but his choices always make sense. And they may not always be the right choice, but they always make sense. And he always finds a way to kind of bring himself back to being who he needs to be and who others need him to be. And I think he's just a really stand-up dude. And I love his love with Tonks. And I'm so sad he's dead. Ah! All right, that's it.
Yeah, I think Remus falls into my favorite Marauder.
Agreed.
So yeah, I would think that way as well. In fact, that was a question I was going to ask. Luke, what do you think? Who's your favorite Marauder? He's going to say Sirius.
Kind of hard to go against Pettigrew, am I right? I mean, I don't know. Lupin, he was my book 3 MVP for the entire book, and of my, which I think is maybe still tied in first for my favorite book in the series. It's hard not to just love Lupin. Yeah, he makes some mistakes later on, but kind of as we talked about this episode, after Sirius is killed, it's pretty complicated. It's just poor guy going through so much. And I think the PTSD angle, I think, is very, very well stated, Terrence. He's gone through some stuff and he's choosing to be involved in these things. I know, but that doesn't make it less troubling or, less diminishing on your personal life. It's terrible. And that's such a very well realistic thing that JK does, along with the whole werewolf stigma of being portrayed as the AIDS stigma of the 80s and 90s, that he's going through two very, very common and relatable things for a lot of people in the fandom.
And I think that's why his character is so well loved, is because he is that relatable character for a lot of those kind of people in our fandom. Lupin was what Harry needed in his third year, and he wasn't afraid to answer questions that Harry had. And, he was, I chalked him up to being that cool teacher that had a lot of knowledge, that really was on your side, that, because he took the Marauders map from Harry, and he could have turned him into Dumbledore for that. He could have turned him in for, spying on other people and for having this map to everywhere in the castle, knowing what everybody was doing at every single moment of every single day. But he didn't. Lupin was he was cool. That's what he was. Even though he had this condition about him, he talked to Harry, he taught Harry. He was like, what memory are you thinking of? Well, flying on a broom. No. What the hell are you doing? That's not good enough. Stuff like that. So I really like that Lupin was kind of that relatable character that Harry could kind of look up to as a professor that knew what the heck he was talking about, but more so as a kind of a friend, an adult friend that Harry needed at that point in his life, and for the rest of his life for that matter. Okay, well, that wraps up our Marauders discussion, kind of closes out our summer a little bit. Like I said, episode 204 starts our Marauders discussion series and goes 204, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, and episode 213. You can find those wherever you catch your podcasts and get in on the fun. We had such a blast breaking down these characters, and I learned a lot about specific characters that I didn't know, and some of my opinions changed as a result of that. Like I said, next week's episode, we're going to start discussing Dumbledore's army characters, beginning with Neville Longbottom. So if you're a Neville lover, be sure to tune in to that episode as well. Okay, folks, before we get out of here this week, we're going to play the questions game. The order is going to go me, Luke, Bailey, and Gretchen, all one by one until we are eliminated. And this week's question is going to start out with, who was your favorite Marauder?
Do you even know the names of the Marauders?
Why would I have a favorite Marauder?
How many Marauders are there?
What the hell is a Marauder?
Didn't the Marauders all die?
Which Marauder was the first Marauder?
How could there be a first?
Which Marauder was the first Marauder to die?
Could I be the first Marauder to die?
Who was the first one with the idea to name themselves the Marauders?
How do you know they were even called the Marauders?
Luke, are you a Marauder?
Which Marauder actually made the map?
Which Marauder made the nicknames?
Either she's in the internet or she's given up.
I said something.
She did. I heard her.
What?
I was talking about Gretchen.
Oh,
okay.
Me? Oh, I go next. Oh, I quit that.
I heard Bailey's question.
I was like, no, I won't be defaulted for my internet.
I was like, good question, Bailey. Oh, what will Terrence say?
Whose turn
over
is
herself.
it? That's always a valid question, right?
Oh, I'm asleep. All right, I default. I lose by default.
Whose line is it anyway?
Go to bed.
You guys keep going.
Luke, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Where would I possibly do that?
Who dances in the moonlight?
Remus Lupin? That wasn't a question.
That's
Sorry.
Yeah, it does not
Just
count.
because she put it up at the end doesn't mean it's a question.
I'm going to make a statement.
I was inflecting. Here we go
All right,
again.
Bailey, you ready?
Oh, no. Let's go.
This was 2 weeks in a row, right? I think so. All right.
That's
All right. Didn't the devil have a fiddle?
Why would Neville have a fiddle?
Well, I didn't say Neville, but I'll concede because I was so confused.
You lose.
Yeah, that's fine. I said the devil had a fiddle.
Oh, it definitely sounded like Neville.
Neville.
That was reasonable.
Response
I
is
was
so
like, you know what? I'm done. That's fine. I was not expecting Neville to have a fiddle.
Neville's fiddle.
Did the devil go to Georgia with his fiddle?
That's what I was getting at.
Neville went down to Georgia.
I love that song.
Was he looking for a soul to steal?
Was Neville a Dementor? Oh, okay, we're done.
Is Neville the devil?
Neville must be the devil because they both rhyme, right?
Oh.
And apparently
had a
sound the same over internet. VoIPs.
Uh,
Nice job, Bailey.
good job.
Oh.
All right, I think
Clean up
we.
that earwax, apparently.
All right, well, thank you to all of our patrons who support us. And if you're not a patron, head over to patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio today to get started. And as a reminder, you can stay up to date with us over on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And it's been a while since we plugged our voicemail line, so give us a call and leave us a message about anything we've discussed. The number is 210-876-3377. And if you're dialing from international, that's outside the United States, put a 1 in front of that. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We're going to go with Neville down to Georgia. I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I am Bailey Riddle.
I'm Luke Hogan.
And I'm Gretchen Rush.
And that's it for episode 213. We'll be back next week with episode 214. Bye-bye. All I can
You
hear...
stay classy, Hogwarts.
That's right.
That was bloody brilliant.
Codswallop.